Well, hello and welcome back to Read Becca. It's time once again for my weekly chatty catch up on everything I've read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading, as well as some general lifey chit chat. And this was a good reading week in terms of getting some stuff finished up and off my plate that I wanted to, and I had due dates on. But it was a little more mixed in terms of the quality and enjoyment of reading. So let's start with the one that was a definite win, a definite hit. Was the fourth book in a continuing series that I'm now caught up in, Her Royal Majesty the Queen Investigates, Book 4, A Death in Diamonds by S.J. Bennett. This series has been incredibly consistent in terms of quality and enjoyment for me, so that was great, but that's kind of odd because this fourth book is a real departure because we're actually jumping back in time to, I think, the late 1950s, and the Queen, somewhat early in her reign, is sort of traveling around. She's at a first major state visit, I think in France, at the beginning of this. So that feeling of it being historical is a big jump from us having been with an elderly queen in contemporary times who is already very experienced. So this seems to be her first mystery that she's investigating. And we're seeing the beginnings of that. We're seeing her set up her first personal assistant that helps her with investigations. That became a long-running tradition over the course of these books, obviously quite fictional. But this story is following the Queen as she is doing her sort of normal duties, but in the course of some events, there's a murder in Mews houses that seems very suspicious and is somewhat in proximity to her husband, though no apparent connection with him. But she becomes interested because there is just something unusual there, and the woman of two people who were killed was wearing jewels that were recently acquired and bought, not by this woman. And we come to find out very quickly that this woman is sort of an escort, and she's with someone who is kind of higher status. So there is some drama there and some conflict in terms of class and society there. So I really enjoyed the mystery, but I think I was much more caught up in the historical setting and the characters, even more than the murder mystery. And to what I said at the beginning, the series has been so consistent that even though it kind of meanders between focusing on the plot and focusing on the characters, I wanted to continue on no matter which part of it I was reading about. There weren't really any lulls, and I was so invested. And I loved especially the personal assistant that we get in this, Joan. So we hadn't had her character before because she had already kind of retired, and we have a different personal assistant in the previous books. So here we're getting that first personal assistant that's kind of acting as hands and feet for the Queen going about. But the reason why she's pulled in is the Queen immediately knows that this woman was covertly involved in Bletchley Park during the war. And so she has some of those skills beyond just being a secretary. She knows how to keep a secret, certainly. And that just catches you up in this, and you enjoy their relationship, I think, as two strong women who are kind of underestimated by everyone around them. And that's something I've enjoyed very, very much about this series. So the history really caught me up. It made me want to go back and watch The Crown. I started it, but struggled with the hour-long dramatic episodes, despite it being a wonderful show. I started it during 2020 and was just not in a place for hour-long dramas at the time. So I feel like maybe I need to go back because immersing in that setting really was vibing with me. So the second thing I finished was also, and I didn't really talk about the mystery at all. I think it's a murder mystery, so I don't want to really give away anything. It's a great plot, though. I very much enjoyed it. So the second mystery that I picked up was A Prisoner in Malta by Phillip DePoy, a Christopher Marlowe mystery. This was much more mixed, and mainly because I enjoyed the history, but I feel like I don't know maybe enough of the history, and it didn't engage me in the middle parts. So we're starting with a young Philip Marlowe, the writer, contemporary of Shakespeare, as he's a student at Cambridge, though he seems older than I would expect for a student, but I don't think we ever get his age. But he's recruited by the Queen's spy master, in that time because they're the prisoner in Malta. There is someone imprisoned in Malta who has information about a plot to replace the queen with Mary of Scots. And so there's this big epic plot that they're trying to get information about. And that aspect really sets things off. So I was completely gripped at the beginning and was very much enjoying that. And then that's maybe the first third in pursuit of getting to Malta and getting to this prisoner. And then once you get there, of course, they encounter this prisoner who has information, and they set off doing other things as a result of getting to the prisoner, right? But at that point, it kind of lost me. It felt like it was just sort of going back and forth and back and forth and not really accomplishing anything. And I feel like if I knew the history better, I would have been able to pick up on meaningful things that I just was not. It grabbed me again at the end, so I did persist on and finish. And the beginning and ending really captured my interest. But that whole middle part just really was not engaging at all. And I kind of struggled to see the point of what was happening, but I think it was, again, there for historical relevance. As we got to the end, it felt like there were increasing amounts of feints, I would say, or misdirects. Not feints like F-A-I-N-T, like F-E-I-N-T-S. So I felt that was a little cheap in terms of tricks used on the reader. And those were like immediate, not drawn out things. So I don't feel like it's a spoiler to even mention it, because it was like very rapidly going, it's this thing, no, it's actually this thing, you know, very, very quickly. And that just didn't feel satisfying to me. So I kind of enjoyed this as a concept, as an idea, but I didn't really enjoy the delivery, especially slogging through the slow middle part that didn't feel like it was really doing anything or moving forward the story very much. There was so much to this that I did get a lot out of, and down to the history, like learning about, not necessarily learning, but I did do some research and read articles about what was going on with certain cast members of this story who were real people. The spy Master Walsingham and Dr. Lopez, who was a Portuguese Jew converted to Christianity as part of this, and kind of all the drama surrounding him. And all of that history was really interesting, but I was enjoying more reading Wikipedia articles really than the book at that point. So, mixed one. I actually, ironically, saw a nonfiction book on Libby called Dark Renaissance that sounds like it covers the same topic, and I think is a new release or is just newly added to my library's Libby. But that sounded even more fascinating than this book. So I don't know if I would continue on with this if it's a series. I haven't even bothered to look. But I do want to read more on the topic. So it certainly was a great jumping off point to start me and like impassion me in this topic, because wow, was there so much fascinating stuff going on that I'm really intrigued to learn more about. And the final thing that I finished this week was less successful than either two of these. And it was a real mix of problems that I had with it, though it wasn't a complete turnoff. I saw some things to enjoy there. And that was The Second Chance Convenience Store by Kim Ho-Yeon, and let me look up the translator's name. Janet Hong was the translator. So this is a Korean cozy shop book. And unfortunately, this turned out to be a lockdown novel. So it does talk about masking and the spread of viruses and stuff. And that was unexpected. And it kind of pops up late in the book even. So the beginnings of that happening actually start in the later part of the book, which kind of undercuts it being very cozy, or is a challenge to it being cozy. But the premise of this book, I thought I was gonna like so much more, because effectively, as usual, we have sort of short vignettes. So each chapter, we're following a different character, and it's surrounding this convenience store, or as they call it at points, an inconvenience store, because it's kind of run down. The woman who owns it is keeping it going, not because she needs money, but for her employees, basically, so that they'll have jobs. And other convenience stores have moved into the area that are newer, shinier, and putting more effort into marketing stuff to the public and upkeep and everything. Whereas she's just kind of doing the bare minimum. But she's a good Christian woman, and that is hammered on pretty hard, though, and we'll come back to my commentary on that. She initially, at the beginning, encounters a homeless man who finds her stolen purse, basically. And he asks if he can buy something with money from it because he's homeless, and doesn't ask for a reward or anything, but he doesn't take anything out of it. He asks nicely. There's clearly something up with him, and that turns out to be alcohol-induced dementia. So he doesn't remember a whole lot, and he has a stutter and speaks kind of slowly, but this convenience store owner becomes very invested in him, and his name is Dokko. And Dokko is actually the central character of this story. So you kind of start by underestimating him somewhat because of his situation, and we don't know anything about him initially. But the convenience store owner welcomes him to the convenience store and sort of slowly starts trying to turn around his life, and eventually he becomes a night worker at the convenience store. And so every chapter is really someone becoming or having an encounter with him, whether they work there or they're a customer or just a random stranger who encounters Dokko, and him really changing their life and enriching their life as this person who's very underestimated. And I loved that element. So that was the standout thing of this book that kept me going and why I really enjoyed it. But why I didn't enjoy it, again, the sort of COVID elements late in the book really made it harder to read and less fluffy and enjoyable. And we're not directly tied into anything, really. But on the flip side, as we're going through the stories, everyone is really kind of sour, or the majority of the characters are really kind of sour and bitter and harsh. And so many of them, including our nice Christian lady, really want to control the lives of other people. And that was so frustrating, especially our main convenience store owner woman. She is frequently all about influencing and being on top of how other people behave. And I've just found that so deeply frustrating with her, so she kind of drove me nuts. But I loved the concept of it. I really enjoyed seeing Dokko progress as a person, but it wasn't about him like enriching himself or improving himself. It was so much about his selflessness and the way that he was thinking of others. And he's so awkward at times, like he doesn't seem to have a filter at moments, and part of that may be the dementia that he's experiencing, but him working away from being alcoholic and slowly getting better at his job and thinking about having a future and trying to have a home and things like that. You see him as a character and an individual through these very short glimpses really progress. And so I feel like as a character journey, that was really, really strong. So I enjoyed that aspect very much, but it unfortunately was not a hit and felt very uneven other than that one consistent character. A lot of the characters really turned me off and were just awful people in general. So I don't like reading about awful people very much, and it kind of put me off. So unfortunately, this is, I think, now my second dud of the Cozy Shop books. So hopefully we will be on to a better one, whatever I pick up next. I had something on the stove and I had to go turn it off. So now my lighting has completely changed for no reason, even though I have it locked. So those were the three that I had finished this week, and I am working on still this collection of folk tales. And I don't know what I'm on to next. I think another murder mystery probably in audio, but I'm not sure which one because I have a couple lined up from my TBR. So in watching stuff, I watched a fantastic movie this week called The Duke that stars Jim Broadbent and Helen Mirren. There were multiple other people that were big famous people, and I can't think of who they were, what their names are, but famous British actors. And this is a historical movie set in the 1960s with Jim Broadbent being a very quirky character, kind of a loser who is not successful and frustrates his wife, who works very hard. But he's constantly taking up causes that are really niche. He's kind of a Sovsit type, sovereign citizen, if you know what that is, who is very anti-tax in England. But this is following the story of him having stolen a painting, a famous Goya painting of the Duke of Wellington. And the trial, him just generally living his life a little bit, all is there and is very cozy and calming. Him annoying his wife is a little frustrating, but they also are dealing with some grief that has divided the couple, and that comes to play a bigger part in their conversations with each other. But it was such a quiet movie and so well acted, and I really enjoyed it. So that was my highlight of watching this week. Everything else, I'm just continuing along with random other stuff. I think that's it for watching and everything. So onward to life stuff. I feel like I'm finding equilibrium, finally. The past month has been real chaos and a lot of up and down with energy and just brain fog and my body trying to adjust to a slowdown. That has really taken the whole month. And so I finally feel very solid equilibrium now, where time has really compressed. It's slowed down a lot, and that's nice. And I feel like I'm kind of looking forward now. I need to get new tires this week, and then maybe I can get out and do some longer distance drives. Maybe get somewhere to see some fall foliage, because there's none here for sure. And I really do want to go see some. So that may be on the horizon. I don't know. Otherwise, this week, it was a week of getting a lot done after not having accomplished a ton for the past, or struggling through stuff for the past several weeks. So I think I mentioned my new foster last weekend, so he's only with me for a couple weeks. But I had the funniest realization, because he's so cute and his name is literally Fuzz. So I accidentally called him Little Fuzzy, and then realized there is a famous sci-fi book called Little Fuzzy, and I have a copy of the wonderful Michael Whelan cover of it, and they look like they could be related. So he is now Little Fuzzy to me, although his name is Fuzz Lightyear. But I got such a kick out of that, so I will make sure to include the picture here so you can see Little Fuzzy versus Little Fuzzy. So that was a delight, and he has been so sweet. His recovery's going well. He's got sutures and everything that are healing up very nicely, and he seems to be doing okay. He's been great. My previous foster, I'm a little heartbroken, is still at the shelter and still really struggling. So if he stays there very long, I'm hopeful that they will say, yeah, he can come back here for however long he needs, because I hate seeing him miserable there at the shelter. What else was going on this week? I can't remember. I don't know. I've just really settled into pseudo-retired life, or temporary retired life. I actually went and got, so I'm a person who really loves cooking, but I can eat the same thing all the time and be totally fine with it. So I have been cooking a lot more, like single meals. So my cooking amount has gone up, but I'm cooking the same thing a lot. So I kind of never eat fast food. And I came up with the idea of getting coupons for fast food and letting that be kind of an indulgence, where as a break from my monotony, because I'm trying to obviously be frugal since I don't have an income coming in. And so I went and got fast food with coupons for the first time, and it was a great deal. So I was laughing at myself for being the old couponing lady. I don't think I will turn into one of those full-on couponers, but so yeah, it's just is a nice way of breaking the cycle of week to week. Anyway, so that was a random aside. Anyway, as I'm rambling, let me get to my recommendations. So I have a couple from this week that were really great. So the first is very obvious and is a forecast of things to come from me in the coming week, and that's the BookTube Prize Finals winner announcement. So I read for the final round. So next week you will be getting my video, hopefully edited, with my final thoughts on this last round of nonfiction reading. Should I spoil? I'll spoiler you and say that the final three were also my top three, or the top three award winners were also my top three, but in a slightly different order, which is interesting. This is the first year, I think, where both the semifinal and the final round, I had the same top three, but in different order. So go check that out. And Robert mentioned that the call for new judges will be posted in November. If you want to sign up to judge next year, you have usually till the end of the year, from November to the end of the year. Then I have Oasis of Books posted a new readathon for this month that I didn't quite catch the video for before making my TBR, unfortunately, but for a suspense readathon focused on Mary Stuart called Suspense in October. And I just read my first Mary Stuart this year, Thorny Hold, and I have picked up a couple more. And Touch Not the Cat was mentioned, and I do have that on my shelf, so I might want to try to fit that in. If I can, I have so many things. My pile of TBR is out of control for this month, but I would like to. And then lastly, Brian from Bookish has been very busy and hasn't been posting as much, but posted a great video recently on optimism, just a general discussion that I really enjoyed, and also some book selections with an optimistic theme. So go check out those recommendations. I will have them all linked down below. So I think for that, or with that, that's the end of my week this week. It's been a little all over the place, but I'm feeling good, feeling pretty darn good. So I wish you a fantastic week in reading and in life, and thank you so very much for watching.